Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome to another Lifestyle of Eden podcast. I'm your host, Nick Tognetti, and today I have my same guest for the entire Seven Pillars series, a good friend of mine, a good coach, and a mentee in my mentoring program, Larry Wilson. What's going on, Larry?
What's up? What's up? Hopefully you guys know me by now. Super pumped to dive into it once again.
Yeah, dude, absolutely. So today we're going to discuss my sixth of my seven pillars, which is with my seven pillars of disease reversal, prevention, and longevity, which is autophagy. And just for the audience to understand a little bit about autophagy really comes from two Greek words, auto and phagy. Auto means self, and phagy means to eat. Essentially, it is your body eating itself in order to clean out the cells from any diseased cells, senescent cells, inflammatory, all of these different types of things, oxidative damage, and so forth. This actually calms down our immune system so that our immune system isn't having to do so much damage against oxidative damage, which oxidative damage binds to our healthy tissue. So whenever it kills oxidative damage, accidentally as a byproduct, it hits healthy tissue. Hey, I have an autoimmune, it attacks my thyroid. I have Hashimoto's. No, it doesn't attack your thyroid. It attacks the oxidative damage on your thyroid, and then as a byproduct, it hits your thyroid. It would be like this. An autoimmune disease is the same exact thing as Larry having a fly on his face and me punching the fly, but as a byproduct, I accidentally knock him out. I was not punching Larry at all. That was not my intention. It was not my job. My job was to punch that fly, but I am so strong that I accidentally hit whatever the fly is on as well. That is the immune system. That is literally what an autoimmune disease is. It is misunderstood. It's
Great
never
comparison.
attacked. Dude, yeah, it does not attack the body. That's not true. It's a total misconception. It's a byproduct of it attacking oxidative damage on the healthy tissue. And so, with that said, autophagy really helps all that. It's for age reversal. The biggest problem for disease and everything is oxidative damage, autoimmune disease, oxidative stress, all of these different concepts. So, autophagy is a real big one. And just to give a biblical background as to how I got to it, the reason I initially found this, I'm not going to go into so much of the diet concepts that God wanted in the Garden of Eden. It looks on the surface like God actually did not allow us to eat animal products in the Garden of Eden. That's not true. That's only if you study the Garden of Eden from the first three chapters only. If you study it from the entire Bible as one concept, you realize that was really not true. But back then, I used to think that. I used to think, hey, we were only able to be plant-based and we could eat dairy as well, but we couldn't slaughter animals until Genesis chapter 9, because on the surface, that's whenever we see slaughtering of animals take place. But that's not true. We see the slaughtering of animals in Genesis chapter 3 when Adam and Eve get clothed with skins from a burnt offering, which means they slaughtered an animal in the Garden of Eden. And so, anyway, my whole point was this, how it got me on it was I started going, okay, why a plant-based diet? It's not the case what God really truly wanted, but back then that was the perspective that I had. So I was like, okay, wait, why? What does a plant-based diet do for you? What's the benefits of it? Blah, blah, blah. And I started coming across the concepts that number one, plant-based proteins are not number one, it's going to be very much lower in protein than if you're eating animal protein. In order for me to eat 150 grams of animal protein a day, that's not hard. To eat 150 grams of plant-based protein, that's pretty hard.
It is.
Possible, but hard. And so not only are you eating less protein, but you're eating a significantly less amount of four major amino acids: methionine, tyrosine, phenylalanine, and leucine. All
Mhm.
four of which are responsible for turning on mTOR or turning it off. And when you turn off mTOR, the muscle building pathway, you you push on autophagy, which is the not muscle building pathway, which cleans out your cells and this, that, and the other. It was the same concept essentially as the flush diet that we all know about. And so I started going, oh crap. What was interesting was I was a vegan for 4 or 5 years. And I remember when I first did it in 2020, was it 2020? 2021 maybe? I first did it back in 2018, but when I really adopted it full time was in 2021. And I remember what was crazy was in 3 months, I got off seven medications. And not only did I get off seven medications, my testosterone was about 150. It was totally tanked. My testosterone doubled twice in 6 months. It doubled to like 350 and then it doubled again naturally. And back then, me and the doctors didn't know how to explain it. We were like, hey, like, how did this happen? I was just like, I just went on a plant-based diet. I don't know. We didn't know what about the plant foods did that, but we couldn't figure it out. But either way, it happened. And so as time went on, I started realizing what was happening. What was happening was there was a study that came out with rats. And they basically, what they did was they pushed on mTOR, which means the muscle building pathway. And when they did that, the rats, their Leydig cells in their testicles or ovaries were not able to take cholesterol as well to produce androgens. Their testosterone radically dropped. So then what they did was they gave the rats rapamycin and they pushed autophagy. And when they did that, the rats' testosterone shot through the roof because their Leydig cells were now cleaned out. The mitochondria were cleaned out where they could take cholesterol and produce androgens at a much higher rate. And I realized, oh crap. 3 years prior, I'm starting to think like I'm connecting the dots in the last 4 years. I'm
Yeah.
like, wait a second. 4 years ago, I was just pushing such a radical level of autophagy that I started producing hormones radically, naturally again. Now, granted, having the low protein with how much I was training is actually the reason I started getting a lot of injuries. It's also the reason why I started getting sick a lot because my immune system was low. Your immune system runs on protein.
Back.
Exactly. So it's all about a balancing concept and seasonal. There are still seasons where I'll go plant-based for 4 weeks and then I'll come back. And so everything, there's a season for all of it, right? But that was really how autophagy came about. And then I just went really deep into all of the understandings and science on it and the disease reversals and prevention. But that's where it started, was me just going, wait a second, why was God so big on fruits and vegetables and legumes and more plant-based lifestyles? Even Abraham and them, like, you have to think about it. They were not eating meat every day. Why? Because they didn't have a refrigerator to put their meat in. So they would have to eat that whole animal right there, number one. Number two, do you know the work it takes to slaughter an animal, skin it, get its meat, all that?
Probably takes them half a day just to do that.
Bro, they did that stuff like once a week. Even in Israel today, in Israel, the rule of thumb is generally you eat vegetarian throughout the week, and then you have meat as a delicacy on the weekend. And
Mhm.
so they were generally eating more plant-based lifestyles, like we see with the blue zones and stuff. Not that they're completely plant-based at all, but they do live a more plant-based than we do here in the United States. So that was where autophagy came from. So with all that, I wanted to give a little bit of background where my pillar came from and kick it over to you on your thoughts.
Yeah, even with our ancestors too, we went through times of feasting and famine. And nowadays, we really don't do any famine. We don't do any times without the surplus of food. So we get in this hyper sugar burning state all the time. They were doing it back then naturally without even thinking about it. Once again, just the lifestyle habits. It wasn't necessarily something they thought about. They would just go through times where they have a surplus of food and then times they would go days without eating. We see autophagy and fasting in the Bible countless times. So we know how important that is. But we touched a lot on oxygen before and fueling the mitochondria. This is an opportunity to clean out some of those cells and recover and produce better cells and more improved cells.
Absolutely. It improves the mitochondria. It improves your ability to burn fat because now your body's able to switch over. You're becoming more insulin sensitive.
That metabolic flexibility aspect that we always talk about and just how rare that is to still be able to burn both sugars and glucose and also ketones or fat.
Absolutely. It's such a big source for energy. It's such a big source for cleaning out cells. It's such a big source for lowering inflammation. You have to be able to team up with the immune system in that. One of the things with autoimmune diseases is people go, hey, I fixed my gut and I fixed my stress, but my immune system, my Hashi's is still high. And I said, okay, great. You fixed the well of where the spring of inflammation was coming from, but the cells that got inflamed are still inflamed. You've stopped the source, that's great, but now you have to fix those cells that are actually still inflamed. How do
Yeah.
you do that? Now you got to push autophagy. This has got to be part of your lifestyle to clean out the cells that are already infected. And what's interesting too is that specifically 3 day fasts in the Bible are really what's actually prescribed over and over. Sure, do we see 40 days? Yeah, we see that with 3 people in the whole Bible. But over and over again, God himself is very dominant on 3 day fasting. And what's interesting is that if you actually look at fasting, When you hit that 3-day mark, and then if you go past 3 days, you can start to lose the benefits. But when you hit 3 days, you get the deepest levels of autophagy and your body starts to develop stem cells. Everything after 16 hours, every 8 hours after the first 16 hours becomes a radically new benefit in terms of autophagy when it comes to fasting. It is a complete renewal of the human.
Now, I think it's important to underline. Now, is that timeline for everybody? Because some people that are stuck in this hyper sugar burning state for so long might not tap into that as quickly as others who are pretty flexible already.
No, I agree. In fact, I don't recommend going into a 3-day fast for most
Yeah.
people. I recommend starting out with just going 12 hours every single night. Every night, if you have dinner at 7, don't eat again until 7 in the morning. I don't like the whole intermittent concept, but just 12 I think 12 hours is just a basic lifestyle thing. Like me, like
Just slowly walk into this.
yeah, I do 12 to 14 hours every day where like I just eat my dinner at whatever time, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, whatever. And then every morning I make my breakfast at the same exact time. I'm eating at 7:45 in the morning. So I'm always going about 12, 13, 14 hours. But then I say, hey, do 24 hours and just eat at dinner whenever you're going to eat. And then don't eat when you wake up the next day. And then don't eat till the evening or 36 hours.
7 p.m.
I'll push people to like the 36-hour thing. Well, I'll say, hey, instead of eating that night, just sleep and then eat the next morning. You hit 36 hours. I've had to work. I've done, I don't know, I've probably done 4 or 5 4-day fast, 3-day fast. But dude, it took me time to get there. Like I'll do every week one day fast, and then there might be like once a month where I hit a 2-day fast. And then there were those times where I was like, okay, I'm just gonna hit the 3 days or 3.5 days or 4 or whatever. But you just gotta work your way up to that. But even just doing it for 24 hours, even allowing that to be part of your process twice a month is tremendous jumps, leaps and bounds into autophagy and having a healthier lifestyle, pushing,
Disease prevention for sure.
absolutely cleaning out your cells, becoming more insulin sensitive, all of those things. I think it's a major component. You'll also notice too, unless you're really ill and diseased, when you start fasting, all of a sudden you have way more energy.
And
Like
mental clarity too. You should really.
absolutely. Your body cleans out really well. You know what's interesting? A lot of people, their breath starts to smell when they get about 16 hours in. When that happens, it's because your body is actually cleaning out. That is a major sign that your body is pushing autophagy right then and there.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah, one of the guys that I used to study under, he's a big time famous Orthodox Jew in Israel that I used to study under one-on-one. He talks about, hey, when you're fasting, you're supposed to fast until your breath stops smelling.
Wow.
Yeah, whenever it stops, that's when your body is like, hey, we've cleaned out enough. Not that you're perfectly clean, but it's hey, we've cleaned as much as we're willing to clean right now. There's stages to this. You've got to go back. But also, I always tell people there is no real mTOR without autophagy. There's no real autophagy without mTOR. There's no valley without a hill and a hill without a valley. So by pushing autophagy and these autophagy concepts, it allows you to be more sensitive to then put on muscle. And then whenever you're eating protein to be able to go into a fast and all those different things. So you've got to have these ups and downs, these balanced, just different kind of things rather than just being all plant-based, all autophagy, all pushing meat. The problem in the United States is that we never push autophagy ever because not only are we not fasting, but bro, we have freaking hot dog eating contests, bro. Like we literally eat
Yeah,
meat,
we're in a constant state of just eating or snacking and feeding.
dude. And not just feeding, but just like we're in a constant state of eating meat, like constantly, bro. That's all we do. We only eat meat, bro. That's it. And or just high protein in general. That is just the thing. And so you start to notice that, dude, these people, bro, I have women that have never done anything in their life steroid wise or whatever. They're 22 years old with low testosterone.
Oh, always. Yeah. Majority, I see.
I'm like, bro, we are so inflamed. Our mitochondria and our Leydig cells and our testicles and ovaries can no longer uptake cholesterol efficiently. And now, granted, is this a cortisol issue too? 100%. But either way, we're so inflamed from so much mTOR. There's just no autophagy. We're just totally unhealthy in that way. Autophagy is such an underestimated concept of healing for the body. It's why all of these drugs, most people don't realize it, but it's why all of these really big time drugs right now, metformins, GLPs, GIPs, rapamycins, all of these drugs, what are they talking about that they do? Oh, they push autophagy. And I was just telling a coach literally yesterday, I said, hey, so and I said, if I come across one of these coaches that know all about these drugs. They can explain them left and right. Most people look at them and go, dude, you know so much. I
Totally.
literally go, you're wasting my time. Like you're literally wasting your time and you're wasting my time. And the reason being is because you know a lot of drugs that do the thing of the lifestyle factor that I can do for free that we're trying to replace.
Yep.
We're
Yep.
trying to replace that. The reality is you need to have fasting in your lifestyle. That's what we're trying to replace. We're
Yep.
too fat and too obsessed and addicted to food that we're like, hey, I can't go fasting. I can't fast. No, like you're trying to replace that mechanism. Like even SLU PP13 or 332. What do they say? It raises your metabolic function to where for people who can't exercise, you can take this and it's like you're burning 300 to 700 calories a day. You're trying to replace one of my free 7 pillars that you need to be doing as a lifestyle concept.
Or with people that are obsessed with muscle building, they might utilize some of this so that they can get some of those benefits without having to pull back. It's just constant biohacking.
Exactly. And that's the whole thing. Like, dude, biohacking, there will always be a downside to these things, bro. There's all these studies even coming out about rapamycin having its downsides. I have them actually in my university. I have them in the resources section. And
You look at why that was created.
it wasn't for the usage we use it now.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, it was for immunity.
And so, whereas now, can there be benefits to some of these things and whatnot? Yes, there can be. But when we start,
Once the pillars are correct. Yep.
exactly, once the pillars are correct and everything's good until it's not. Like I know one coach, one practitioner who apparently he does rapamycin year round to constantly push, that those things about. I'm like, bro, you're freaking missing it, dude.
Yeah.
You're
Do you get
missing
sick a lot?
Yeah,
Yes.
and I'm like, even if you don't get sick, the reality is don't call yourself functional. Because functional means root cause lifestyle. The root cause lifestyle is the fact that you should be fasting and not needing to depend on Rappa. Now, granted, I have Rappa in my cupboard right now. Do I use it? No. Have I used it? Yes. But I have it in there just because I got tons of stuff in there that I used to use for case studies and just studying different concepts or stuff that I actually used to use a long
Yeah.
time ago, years ago, whatever.
Self-experiment too.
Sure. But the thing is that it's the lifestyle. And so for people who go, no, autophagy can be pushed even harder with rapamycin. And I go, but who says I want to push it harder? I want to push it as much as fasting enables me to push it. After that, I go, why do I want to go harder? It's like saying, hey, Nick, you can go work out and do these sprints for an hour, but I can go harder. I can go for 3.5 hours. And I'm like, but do I want to sprint for 3.5 hours? Like, I don't want to sprint for 3.5. That's my whole point. Hey, I can sleep more. You talk about sleep is good. I can sleep for 14 hours. I don't want to sleep for 14 hours. That's my point, is that like people are trying to take the 7 pillars and say, I can do it more with this. And I go, God set the boundaries around the sea for a reason, because the sea is really good when it's in its boundaries, when it's in the boundaries of natural construct that God designed for it. When the tsunami hits and that thing goes outside of the boundaries, we die. The same thing with my 7 pillars is when you hit autophagy within the constructs that God designed for it within fasting or a plant-based protocol or whatever it is, it's wonderful for the body. But when you start to go outside of that designed protocol that God designed within the boundaries of the sea, the sand shores of the sea, you now start to hurt the individual in some way, shape, or form. You start to lose too much muscle. You start to become malnourished. You start to lower the immune system. There's plenty of things, but either way, it's the whole thing that more does not mean better. The boundaries that God designed for all of these things are perfect.
So I get a lot of questions about how does autophagy and fasting differentiate between males and females and by different ages. I would love to hear your thoughts on that.
That's a good thought. And actually, but also don't
There
let me
is.
don't let me forget that I do want to talk about autophagy fasting in regards to the gut microbiome. Don't let me forget that. But anyway, so when it comes to gender, male and female, which by the way, for everyone to know, there is only a male and there is a female. Just so everybody knows where I stand. God made male and female. So with that said, I don't get too in the weeds about where those things are as long as the people are generally healthy. Like, I do not have serious cases of mine enter into fasting. I do have certain cases where after they've worked with me for 6 months and I fixed all their crap and all this other stuff, like they're actually fasting protocol. They've worked into that season. You have to work your way into certain seasons
You
of
get
the
more out of it too, I think, if you prepare for it correctly.
yeah, the pillars are not meant, hey, go jump in all Nick's 7 pillars right now. You've got to figure out what level are you at? Where's your health? How do we get to the next season for the next pillar and really operate those things? But when it comes to gender, I don't really differentiate too much as long as the individuals are generally pretty healthy. Cortisol's not too crazy, and there's just certain things where I need to make sure we're okay on. I need to make sure they don't have a blood sugar dip too much if there's just whatever.
Yep.
Whenever it comes to age, I don't really differentiate at all when it comes
I
to.
worry about older individuals. Sometimes they're already not eating and they're a little bit malnourished. That's where I start to worry about it. Because
Well, this is
a
this
lot
is
of
what this is the same thing as earlier. Same with gender in regards to as long as they're not having any serious health issues, then I'm going to do that. Because to be honest with you, according to the blue zones, it is literally the fasting that is enabling them to get to the ages that they're getting to.
exactly. So for me, it's a hard balance because we see the most unhealthy individuals. I wouldn't always say that, but we see a lot of these issues start to rise in the 60s and the 70s pretty predominantly. And it's some of those people who I think would get the most out of fasting. But how to apply that based on their already situation is what I struggle with sometimes.
Yeah, you just got to fix their situation, fix the rest of their pillars. And once you do that, then you'll be able to start implementing those different types of things. What's interesting, there was a study that came out on rapamycin that said that for female mice, they were increasing their lifespan by 9%.
Wow.
For male mice, with rapamycin pushing autophagy, which is what you get through fasting, they were increasing their lifespan by 14%. You know what's interesting is that the blue zones live 14% longer than us. The difference is they're both having it from autophagy. The rats were getting it from rapamycin. The humans were getting it from fasting and proper lifestyle. And actually, it was about 15%. They were actually a percent higher than even the highest ones that were on rapamycin. So, what does it show is that, yes, autophagy is the key with the other pillars. But the thing is, what was the mechanism of which that autophagy was entered into? And it was through fasting. So you can try and do Rappa all day, but the reality is a free way, a safe way with no side effects that rapamycin could have, or any of these other drugs for that matter, is going to be through fasting. It's never going to be beaten, ever.
And you've taught me, once again, I've applied this, but there's layers of autophagy. Like there's layers of the skin. If you were to burn your skin, there's multiple layers. With
Exactly.
that being the same as autophagy and some of the fasting methods, what are your thoughts on that and how to hit some of the deeper layers correctly?
Absolutely. So one of the MDs that I work with, he has his algorithm of 6. I have my pillars of 7. And the only difference in our algorithm and his algorithm of 6 and my pillars of 7 is I have autophagy as its own pillar. And he used to ask me, and actually now he won't teach the algorithm of 6 alone. He teaches algorithm of 6 and pillars of 7 because of how I bought him into this. And the thing is that the reason why was because autophagy has to be its own pillar. And the reason being is because if you eat right, quote unquote, you're eating clean meats, all that, this, that, and the other, you could still never be hitting certain levels of autophagy ever because you're eating, but you're eating all the time or you're whatever, like you're still never hitting true autophagy. You're pushing minor levels when you work out or if you eat, go overnight, 12 hours not eating, whatever, but you're never really pushing it. The way I've always explained it, like you said, is I explain layers of autophagy to the layers of degrees of to burn degrees. So if I burn my hand, I might hit the first layer of my skin. It's a first degree burn. But then I can get deeper and it's a second degree, third degree, fourth degree. And so it's the same thing with autophagy and how deep we get into the cell for truly purging out with autophagy. And so when you do things like a plant-based diet, you are hitting great levels of autophagy, but they're not super, super deep. They're not super deep. They're still pretty deep, but they're not crazy deep. But whenever you hit 16 hours of fasting, you barely start to hit the surface. You're like just peaking on autophagy at about 16 hours. Then, whenever you get to, say, 24 hours, you start to get much deeper. In fact, right now, I'm literally about to pull up a autophagy protocol that I literally have, and I'll get to the exact depths. So around 12 to 16 hours, minimal autophagy. insulin starts dropping, glycogen stores begin depleting, very early stages of cellular cleanup. When you get to 16 to 24 hours of fasting, water fasting. Now, granted, keep in mind, when I water fast, I'll still have salt and in my water, and I still may have 2 cups of coffee in the morning. Okay. Black. Moderate. So 16 to 24 hours of fasting, you start hitting moderate autophagy. Autophagy initiates a little bit deeper. You're not just at the very early stages of cellular cleanup, and mTOR is completely inhibited and AMPK rises. Okay.
Mm.
16 to 24 hours in. Now mTOR is shut off. 24 to 48 hours, you're hitting high autophagy. As soon as you hit that 24-hour mark, bro, you're getting deep into autophagy up until 2 days, up until 48 hours. Cellular repair is radically accelerating. Ketone production is overflowing, and your growth pathways from mTOR are completely downregulated.
And
And
when you get to that spot, it's very muscle protective as well.
explain why.
Ketones. When you have high ketones, you're in a spot where you're not burning through glycogen anymore necessarily. Your muscles are going to be protected by that once you
Exactly.
get to that state. So yeah, there's a small window where you could worry about muscle loss a little bit, but there's probably nothing to trip over once again.
No, just like nobody gained muscle in a day, nobody lost muscle in a day.
Okay.
So then 48 to 72 hours, okay, boom, you hit that 2 day mark. 48 to 72 hours, you're hitting peak levels of autophagy, maximal autophagy activity, including after 2 days. Now, guess what do you hit? Stem cell regeneration, specifically in the gut microbiome and the immune system. You are literally creating stem cells in the body, which, by the way, I know certain companies right now that are doing these patches that are they're not like injecting peptides, but it is causing your body to start triggering to release peptides and to create stem cells. And I'm like, even that, as awesome as that is, because it's actually causing your body to do it naturally, it's still me spending hundreds of dollars a month on something that I could just be hitting fasting on and living that type of lifestyle. And then we have beyond 72 hours. Autophagy is still active, but it depends on stress and the individual context. This is where you can start to get a little overboard, where I don't really recommend going over 72. You start hitting nutrient deficiencies, muscle breakdown, and those things can start to be a concern. So after 24 hours, though, like I said, AMPK rises, mTOR completely drops, you're full autophagy, and you start having serious cellular repair. But after 2 days, dude, 2 days and three full days, that is stem cell regeneration, bro. It's just absolutely insane. And so even me, like, I'm like, hey, I need to get back more into this. I was doing fasting like once a week, and now I'm not going to do it once a week. I'm going to do it like a couple times a month. But I really
How
just want to,
frequently do you think? A couple times a month?
yeah, when I say that, I just mean like once a like a 24-hour fast, like maybe twice a month, or maybe a 48-hour fast, like once a month or something, or a 72-hour fast. But I'm definitely trying to start getting back into that now that I've gotten settled and I've gotten over some of my own issues that I was going through and everything else. But
Now, when you're doing that, will you prep for it in a way where you'll do a little bit of plant-based, maybe fast mimicking days, then into that fasting, or do you feel like your body's already stable enough to do so?
if I know I'm going to hit a 3 day fast, what I'll do is I'll probably hit a 1 day fast a couple days prior, or a 1 day fast for 2 weeks once a week. And then I'll hit like a 48-hour fast. And then if I'm able to hit that 48-hour fast, then maybe like a couple weeks later or the next month, I'll hit the 3 day fast. I
Yeah,
do notice that I have to prime my body with at least 1 day of 24 hours.
yeah, yeah. Just like you not walk into the gym and go crazy with exercising, you don't go crazy with fasting right off the bat. It's something you
No,
want to kind of for.
no, absolutely. I agree 100%. But with your glycogen stores, as soon as you're fat adapted, you have no carbs running through the bloodstream. And so therefore insulin's low. When insulin drops, autophagy starts activating. But when this happens, you'll start entering autophagy faster when you get fat adapted. But autophagy and mTOR, they're obviously completely inversely related. So no protein or low protein, autophagy goes down, mTOR goes down, and autophagy goes up. Here's my problem. People that go keto, they're like, hey, I'm trying to push autophagy. And I'm like, dude, there is just no, like, anybody who like just really understands, to me, like, you're just never going to convince me about keto. Like, you're just not going to. I don't care. Like, your one benefit comes with 13 side effects.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, not only from the side effect of
The protein's so high that it's going to break down into glucose a lot of the times. If people want to do it, they got to go lower protein, higher fat.
higher fat, exactly. And I'm like, even when you're doing that, most of the time you're totally removing like antioxidants and all the there's just I'm just not a fan of keto in any way, shape, or form because it's inversely going against what autophagy really is about. Autophagy lowers mTOR because protein is lowered. That's really what's going on. And so when you're like, hey, I'm going to eat keto and I'm going to eat this high protein but no carbs, I'm like, bro, you're just putting pressure on the system of the body that we don't need to be pushing because you're too lazy and obsessed and addicted to food that you can't just genuinely go into a fast. Or you're trying to fast and push keto because you're trying to get greedy to think more mTOR is better. And like I said, more of the ocean is not better. The ocean is good when it stays in the boundaries of the sea that God provided. Same thing with autophagy and anything else. Like when you start to keep it in the boundaries of the lifestyle that God designed for it, it becomes a wonderful thing. But people are trying to hasten their healing rather than just living the seven pillars and letting the healing come naturally, where they wake up one day and look back and go, dude, I feel way better than I did 6 months ago.
Yeah, it's just like an elimination diet. A lot of the reason people feel better is just eliminating so many things.
100%. And then it gives them not only either anorexia, but orthorexia is like the freaking out of what you're eating.
It's a
Oh,
very hard diet to stick to.
yeah. Hey, what am I? Oh, I can't eat that. I can't eat that. But the thing, too much fasting, what's it going to suppress? It's going to suppress your thyroid function.
Yeah, yeah, and that's what we see with carnivore long term.
Exactly. Carnivore, you lower glucose and you lower carbs. That's literally what's governing the thyroid concepts. Those are the things that I'm pretty big on when you push autophagy. I think plant-based is the best. If you're gonna have to do it through diet, I think plant-based is the best way to do it
What about
because
a fast mimicking day?
like eating like 600 calories a day.
Yeah.
The reason I struggle with that personally is here's the thing. I can never fast. If somebody said, hey, eat early in the morning before the sun comes up and then fast the rest of the day, not a freaking chance, bro. Once my metabolism starts, I'm done. I'm done. I eat every 3 hours. I will be starving. I will starve myself, bro. But I can fast if I just don't eat that day. If I don't eat in the morning, I'm good. Like I don't get bothered for the rest of the day. But if I eat in the morning, I'm gonna get hungry every 3 hours. My metabolism's already started. It is what it is. So
Yeah.
for me personally, I'm not saying it doesn't work. I'm just saying from a mental standpoint, I'm
Hard.
like, it's just way harder to me where I'm like, hey, I'd rather just fast than even eat nuts. If I was gonna fast for 48 hours and you told me at like 3 p.m., hey Nick, do you want to have this little bag of a fourth cup of nuts to keep you going? I'd be like, heck no, dude. Putting that's like putting a naked woman in front of a sex addict and being like, hey, do you just want to come sniff her real quick and
Yeah.
you want to come look at the woman, but you can't touch her? He's no, just don't give me the woman at all.
That's fair. That's a cool comparison. That's hilarious.
You know what I mean? So that's where I stand with it. Like I said, I'm not against it. I know certain practitioners, I know certain doctors that do like it, but I'm like, for me, I'm just like, it's just not going to be what I do for
Yeah,
sure.
I've used it before, and even if it's 2 meals and 700 calories, just between maybe you eat at 3 p.m. and 7 p.m., just slowly working towards this method. But I hear you. I think that makes sense.
Yeah. In fact, you want to know the top experts, including for fun, AI actually. Do you want to know what they say are besides fasting? Fasting is the number one form of autophagy. But do you know the diets that they actually say for autophagy? They say that it either needs to be plant-based or it needs to be a low protein ketogenic diet, like you were just
Yeah,
talking about.
yeah, yeah.
Because people never really go into it because their protein through gluconeogenesis is just converting over to sugar.
It's happened to me myself. I did carnivore one time and I had protein at 220 and I never tapped into it. But when I pulled it down to 120 and then raised my fats, I was starting to get some ketones going. You could
Yeah,
fall into, and once again, you're missing some of the antioxidants and once again, the thyroid. But I think the fast mimicking the carnivore stuff, when done correctly, it can be a tool
sure.
for it, but to each their
Yeah.
own.
No, I won't completely throw it out, but
Going to help somebody work their way into fasting, then it's a win for me. But once again, if you can
sure.
just commit and do it correctly and right away, that's obviously ideal. But not everybody can do that.
No, I agree. I just think, like I said, for me, always meet somebody where they're at. And as a practitioner, that's what I do. Everybody's not there, so I've got to meet them where they are. But one of the things I continually, like I said, I just continually tell coaches when they start talking about all these new drugs and peptides and blah, blah, I say, dude, you're coming out with new things to learn about. to replace the root cause of the proper lifestyle. And I go, so if you're going to do that, fine, that's fine. Go do that. I'm not here to tell you not to.
Yeah.
What I am here to tell you not to do then is don't call yourself functional, because functional means root cause. So if you're not willing to address the fact that you or them are not willing to hit that root cause, then just call yourself a practitioner. Don't call yourself a functional practitioner. Functional means, hey,
Sure.
what lifestyle concept are we not adhering to that is therefore producing the fruit of illness? Because then I can actually hinder that, because the goal is to get you off drugs.
Yep. Not replace them with a peptide or supplement. Yep.
Exactly. And so that's really the lifestyle that I want to really get into and live. Now, granted, you may have to continually use adaptogens and certain amino acids like L-theanine and things
Which
like that.
are what a lot of those are herbal.
But those are totally natural, herbal.
Yeah.
I'm totally cool with that, bro. Like, I am totally fine with that. I have no problem with it. It's just when we start trying to get into all these prescriptions and things, because even then, if I'm taking the L-theanine like I do every day and everything else, I'm still living the lifestyle concepts that are conducive to the L-theanine doing
I
its
mean,
job.
some of these adaptogens are mushrooms that you can literally acquire and eat if you wanted to as well. We just do it for convenience in a supplement form.
Absolutely. And I think
But I
that
mean,
is something.
that's why it is still whole foods, these herbal ingredients.
No, it really is.
Just a convenience thing.
I don't think those go against the will of God and what he designed for us at all. He designed for us to use the oregano. And so if I can get a high dose of it concentrated into certain pills and it's pure oregano oil and this, that, and the other, I'm totally cool with that. If I can get the L-theanine, if I can get the mushrooms totally dried and put into a powder that I can put into my hot tea or something like that, like those are all concepts that I think that the Lord really wants us to live on, because we're not having any side effects from it and all these things.
Yeah, and that's still functional in my mind.
100%, because it's still getting back to what he told us would heal us. He told us that the green herbs of the field would heal us. In fact, I had a call with a couple really top practitioners the other day, and I was telling them about these biblical concepts. I said, you know what's interesting? In Hebrew, it literally says specifically not every herb, it says every yerek asev hasadeh. It says every green herb of the field. You know what's funny is that all these big time herbs that we talk about, rosemary, oregano oil, thyme, ashwagandha, all of these things, they're what's called evergreen herbs. What it literally means is that these herbs grow and can be used year round in whatever season or climate they are growing in.
Wow.
And so these were the things that he specifically said will be used for the healing of man in the book of Psalms. And not only that, this was the food in Genesis chapter 1, verses 29 and 30. He specifically said animals could only eat one food. It specifically says every green herb of the field. All of our animals were meant to only eat these green herbs, because when we eat those animals, we're eating those herbs and we're also being healed just by eating those things. So he gave us all of these concepts. So I'm really big on these herbs. I'm really big on L-theanine. I'm really big on adaptogenic concepts. I'm really big on all of those things, because like for me, I'm okay taking 20 pills a day, 40 pills a day if that's what I'm taking. Those are the things I'm taking. I have no problem with that. My liver is going to be fine. It's not bad. People go, oh, it's a lot of pills, blah, blah. I don't always take that, but I do recognize there are certain seasons, like right now, this season is requiring an abundance of time and energy from me as I get this university off the ground and everything else, to where I know that I need to have good sleep and I need to have good energy, to where I am taking more adaptogens and different things every single day right now, just to make sure that I'm always efficient. And then once this stuff gets behind me, I go, hey, now I'm going to back off those a little bit. And then whenever those seasons come back, but at least those are the things that I turn to in my habits and lifestyle, rather than all of these other drugs or whatever else for that matter.
Yeah, two things I think we should touch on here is obviously the gut microbiome, how this autophagy affects gut health, but also cortisol. Some people talk about carnivore, autophagy, fasting, spiking cortisol, causing more stress. What are your thoughts on that and how that actually is true or not?
Yeah, so with the gut micro, okay, I'll start with cortisol because that's a shorter one.
Twofold question here.
Cortisol, if somebody has a really jacked up cortisol issue, I generally am a little bit more reluctant when it comes to fasting. I'm not against it entirely, but I am more reluctant. And the reason being, it's not even so much on what it does to your cortisol. It's the fact that when you have really high cortisol, like I used to have, I was always hungry and ravenous. I wasn't even able to fast. I would fast for 10 hours and I would just be unsuccessful.
And the aspect you're dumping blood sugars into your system again too, so it's going to be harder to tap into that autophagy we want.
Yeah, sure. So I'm a little bit more, hey, let's fix some of the issues and then let's hit that pillar. a little harder. We're already hitting that pillar if I do plant-based with you for times or whatever, but let's hit it a little bit harder through fasting once we start to get past a couple health chapters. But when it comes to the gut, this is actually a fascinating one. So the gut microbiome obviously has lots of gut microbes, which gut microbes, the other word for that is probiotics. Lactobacillus, Akkermansia, all of those things are gut microbes, but they are literally probiotics. And so all probiotics, when you take a probiotic, for the audience to know, when you take a probiotic, that probiotic will die in your gut within 14 days. It has a 14-day lifespan. The only way it will continually live is if you feed it prebiotics. Prebiotics, people are like, oh, I'm going to go get a prebiotic supplement. Screw your prebiotic supplement. If you're going to take a probiotic supplement, totally cool, man. Like, I'm totally fine with that. But screw your prebiotic supplement. Prebiotics are fiber found in plant foods. It's that simple. That's all prebiotics are. It's fiber, soluble fiber. You have insoluble and soluble fiber that's found in plant foods. So anytime I eat pineapple, anytime, like I just had for my last meal, part of my last meal was dried figs. In there, I had figs, had 5 grams of fiber in one serving. All those things, that's prebiotic fiber. So anytime I eat that prebiotic fiber, which by the way, no animal products contain prebiotic fiber. So when I eat prebiotic fiber from these fruits and stuff, it feeds the probiotic in my gut. And the probiotic in my gut is not the goal. It's what the probiotic is going to develop. The probiotic then eats those prebiotics as food, and then it develops postbiotic short chain fatty acids like butyrate, which then can create biotin and different vitamins and nutrients in your body. Short chain fatty acids are anti-inflammatory and soothing to the immune system. I say that to say all probiotics in the gut are fed and nourished by you eating prebiotics. There is one probiotic in the gut that is not true. It is the only one, and it is the one that takes up the highest population of the gut microbiome. Akkermansia mucin. Akkermansia mucin takes up the highest amount. It should be taking anywhere between 0.5% to 4% of the population of your gut microbiome. And the way that Akkermansia mucin is fed is that when you start fasting, so when you eat food, so when you start fasting, what it does is your stomach is empty, and it actually eats the mucin or your mucosal lining. And it eats the mucosal lining so that the mucosal lining can grow back stronger. It continually is re-strengthening your mucosal lining by eating it, and it grows back. Eating it, it's like working out, it grows back. Break the muscle down, grow it back. And so when there's food in the gut, Akkermansia cannot get to the mucosal lining. So it can't eat it, and therefore it can't grow. And this is how it can actually become depleted.
Interesting.
So you look at these people's gut microbiomes, and dude, they're GI maps and they have no Akkermansia.
Very common.
There's 2 reasons. Number one, they never fast. Their stomachs are never truly empty. So Akkermansia never gets a chance to grow. Polyphenols actually also grow.
Now, is that part of the reason it's the hardest to grow back? Because when we run a gut protocol, we see that sometimes it takes a little bit longer for that to get reinoculated.
It can, because the leaky gut concept and them not eating. Here's the thing, is that the things that fasting does, it enables your gut bacteria. It also allows the bad bacteria, opportunistic bacteria, to drown out and to become suppressed. So fasting literally rebalances all of these concepts of the gut microbiome, starving out opportunistic and bad bacteria. It allows Akkermansia to be refed. And then whenever you do eat healthy prebiotic fiber so that it feeds the probiotics within your gut. So you have the eating and you're feeding the good bacteria, then you go fasting or you go 12 hours a night without eating and this, that, and the other. And you're constantly feeding either your probiotics or the probiotic Akkermansia. Probiotics or probiotic Akkermansia. You're continually feeding that while starving bad bacteria and this, that, and the other. But the other thing too is that Akkermansia is actually the most predictive probiotic for predicting metabolic disease, diabetes, all of these other things. They say, hey, show me your gut flora with Akkermansia, I will predict your disease. It's the most predictive form of disease when it comes to the gut microbiome.
Interesting.
And so you see that Akkermansia also acts similarly as a GLP-1, a glucagon-like peptide, right? So glucagon being from the alpha cells of the pancreas, whenever you have stress from cortisol triggering to your pancreas, glucagon start dumping out. We need to go to the liver, get sugar, we need more energy, all this stuff. So whenever you're constantly having high glucagon come out, it's almost like you start suppressing Akkermansia because number one, you're always eating. So whether it's indirect or directly suppressing Akkermansia, either way, what I see in most of my cases is that whenever I have a cortisol case and I get their GI map, they also have no Akkermansia.
Yep.
So there's all these connections. So fasting, if they're healthy, is a very critical component to Akkermansia, to the gut microbiome. I think there's different levels of fasting to where if you're unhealthy, you have a gut issue, you have a cortisol issue, I don't think that you should do extended fasts. I think that you should do the typical daily fast, which is 12 hours every single night. I
Yep.
think that is a fantastic way to start resetting the gut microbiome. As you get healthier, boom, you move into a 24-hour and you start to migrate more and more towards that. Fasting should always be a part of your lifestyle, though. Like I said, even if it's just a 12-hour thing, and even if you're eating right and doing all those things, you're always going to feel light and your stomach is always going to have a break. It's always going to live this proper balance and so forth. But these concepts of Akkermansia and the gut microbiome as it pertains to fasting and the mucosal lining is absolutely critical. But the stress is a major piece in that because stress raises cortisol and it also opens up the tight junctions of your gut. The other thing that does that too is when you go through menopause, when they drop estrogen, now the tight junctions of their gut start to open up even more, all of these different things as well. So there's tons of concepts that go into this for male, female, all different ages.
Wow. Countless benefits.
Yeah,
Countless.
absolutely. So the autophagy, I think it's huge. Like I said, it is my sixth pillar. You can push autophagy in many different ways. Just to summarize, you can push it a little bit with working out. You can push it a little bit with a plant-based diet. You can push it a little bit with, sure, plenty of different drugs or whatever it is. But fasting, a big part of that. Either way, fasting needs to be a part of our lives in some way, shape, or form. I would recommend utilizing fasting under the supervision of some form of a coach or practitioner that is very well versed and all of these things to make sure that you're appropriate with your blood work, your blood sugars, your gut microbiome, cortisol and adrenals, hormonal panels, and so forth. But nevertheless, one of the biggest ways, and I might even say the biggest predictor for longevity, as we said, this is a major longevity factor. The fact that the longevity statistic on autophagy is what extended the lifespan in rats. That percentage of lifespan, 15%, is the same percent that the blue zones live longer, shows that autophagy is what is responsible for them living that. So you've got to clean out those cells. If you want to reverse autoimmune diseases, which 10% of America has right now, by the way, and it's rampantly going up, then you've got to become acquainted with autophagy after you fix the adrenals and after you fix the gut. It's just a major part of disease reversal ultimately, but also disease prevention and longevity, like my 7 pillars of disease reversal, prevention, and longevity.
So how frequently should somebody try to do this? Just a general advice for somebody interested in what we're talking about today.
If somebody's healthy, which they're probably not if they're listening to this, most likely, if somebody's healthy, I think generally speaking, if you want to do a 24-hour fast every 2 weeks, I
Mhm.
think that's a great thing. Even if you did it every week, okay. But I think every 2 weeks, I think that's a great thing. To be honest with you, even if you did it once a month, you're still doing it 12 times more than you did it the year before.
I think even once a year, it's still beneficial.
Yeah. I
If you
think
just
I
clean your house, even if you clean your house once a year, it's better than no times a year.
I think once a month and then doing a 2 to 3 day fast once every quarter would be a very life-changing concept for everybody.
Mm,
But I
implement.
don't recommend it unless you really start fixing a lot of the other issues. It is not, to me, it is not the foundational pillar. Hydration, body movement,
Sleep.
community, sleep, nutrition. My other 6 pillars or 5 pillars, I might even say my five, because oxygenation, I might even put a little bit on the back burner with ice baths, depending on where you are with certain things. But those other pillars are the daily like staples that you really need to jump on. And then as you start to progress in your health, you can start to get into this pillar. Not that you don't get into it from the beginning. Like I said, just going 12 hours without eating at night or
Gonna be a byproduct of living the lifestyle.
sure. The depths of the pillar, though, become more realized as you become healthier all around. Yeah, no,
So
for sure. No, this is good, man. Once again, it's always a pleasure to speak with you on these things, Larry. I love it's like passion speaking to passion
Yeah, man.
when it
Yeah.
comes to the 7 pillars, bro. So this is good to the audience. I know that they really just enjoyed all of this for sure. They're continually learning from the 7 pillars, being able to apply this and essentially being more of a doctor of their own home, which is a goal. But for everybody, stay tuned until our next episode. We still have our seventh and final pillar, which is going to be on sleep. So stay tuned for the next episode. Thank you guys.
See ya.